Hello and welcome to another episode of With Enough Prep Time. Today I'm going to continue with the response to Grace Randolph Beyond the Trailers ranking of the top DC movies. I always enjoy Grace Randolph and I like her reasonings for things, even though I kind of disagree with them. So let's get on with part 2.
But hold on. Then, Batman v Superman. I really like this movie, as you know. I'm a Batman fan, so I agree with his point of view of Superman. I'm like, that Superman is irresponsible and ridiculous and Boy Scout. I love that stuff. And it's the same problem with The Last Jedi. Are you a Han Batman fan, or are you a Luke Superman fan? If you're a Han Batman fan, you get these movies. But if you're a Superman Luke fan, you find them offensive. And that's really where the problem came. But I love the darkness of Batman v Superman. I love the world building. I love trying to set up story for later, the larger franchise storytelling that Marvel has. I thought the Martha stuff was brilliant. I'm a huge Batman and Superman fan. I've been reading the comics my whole life. Not until I saw that movie, well, not my whole life, but for a long, since I was a kid. And when I saw that movie, I was like, oh yeah, their moms are both named Martha. I thought it was great.
How did you not know that? How was a superhero fan do you not know that? That always blows my mind that DC fans actually say they didn't know that that Batman and Superman's mother's names were Martha. Like that never occurred to them. That you're not a real fan then. You're maybe a Batman fan or something like that, but you're not a real... Because people often say they're DC fans, and really they're Batman fans. And that's where Grace Randolph really falls in. And I think she even admitted it so much, once before. And it's a problem for DC, because I think a lot of those I'm a DC fan people are also in working and orchestrating and running the DC animated universe, and are running the DCEU, and it's a big problem. Batman's cool, but so Shazam, so's Wonder Woman, so's Superman, so's Martian Manhunter. They all have these really great internal mythologies that are sprawling and big. The way that we appreciate how Gotham is the night and dark and whatever. Metropolis is also the city of the future. Wonder Woman is also dealing... she's usually put in somewhere like Washington DC. They should just give her own city. I don't know why they don't, which is based around kind of politics and stuff like that, because all of that fits into the mythology, and she should always be an ambassador. I've said this over and over again. I don't know why they keep giving Wonder Woman all these different jobs and making her go from city to city. But in any case, all of these heroes, when done at their best, when we think about them, because that's the key, with what's happened with Batman and the different interpretations, and how each different interpretation, whether it be Burton or Nolan or even Zack Snyder, funnily enough, that all of their interpretations are kind of valid. The only ones that aren't valid, I think, are the second Schumacher movie, Batman and Robin, which I just think is to Batman what the Man of Steel is to Superman. And then the one before that, which is and then the people like to give props to Adam West and say, it was back in the... No, it wasn't Batman. Just wasn't Batman, as I see it, as the iconic version. You didn't get that until Tim Burton. And the reason why all of those movies work is because each director thinks very thoroughly about who these characters are. And I would say something like Wonder Woman is the Tim Burton version of Wonder Woman or the Tim Burton or Donner version of Wonder Woman, right? And hopefully we're gonna get the more serious Nolan-esque, not like it's like Nolan, but like a kind of Nolan, that kind of serious take on the character, serious contemplation about what the character means, and addressing some of the mythology, the mythic element of the character. I think that will happen later. First, you have to set up and introduce us to the character, which I think, Linda Carter and, and now Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman is now done. But the point I'm trying to make is, with DC characters, that's their stepping stone. Those first movies, I think, are like the Shazam movies, like an introduction to the Shazam mythos, and then now you can start kind of playing around with, once you've done a solid introduction, playing around with what does it actually mean to be this character, and to intellectually diagnose these characters, so that you can bring out the mythic kind of element of the meaning of the ultimate thematic meaning of the characters, which is what Nolan did so well. And with Batman vs Superman, Zack Snyder did that with Batman, but failed to do with Superman, unfortunately. So what was I mean, in response to what she's saying, I think she's admitting, like, she's a Batman fan, and that's why she likes BVS. But she's forgetting to see, like, you can't call a movie Batman v Superman and make it a Batman kind of movie, and ignore the who Superman is and what Superman means, and all of that kind of stuff is just lacking in that movie, and it's a real hole in the center of an otherwise, I think, really, really interesting take on the characters.
They're really good. Next up, Batman Returns. I don't care what some of you think, I love this movie. Catwoman is amazing in it. It's an incredible origin story, and it's way ahead of its time. Mm-hmm. What's being said about feminism today was said in Batman Returns. It's just phenomenal. In fact, it's what Birds of Prey should have been. Birds of Prey is missing the vulnerability of the Catwoman Batman Returns story. And I think if you had done Mad Love with that creative team, it would have been a much better... you would have gotten what I think people were hoping to get out, or DC fans were hoping to get out of Birds of Prey. Also, because I love business, I love the Max Schreck stuff. I think that's fabulous, and of course that involves Catwoman. The Christmas angle, the Penguin stuff, although there are some great lines. I mean, this movie's so incredibly cornball. It's great. Still not enough...
absolutely, agreed. Catwoman is fantastic. Best Catwoman we've ever seen on screen in Batman Returns. I'm going to go into this a bit more, but I think Penguin is fantastic in it. I love the Burton aesthetic. I think people who say that Burton didn't get Batman are just wrong. I mean, he gave us a Gotham that was a dark, weird place, but he just made it, like, he did exactly what all good Batman writers do, which is bring their own aesthetic and their own understanding. What is it, this dark, weird city? How would I, with my aesthetic and my artistic disposition, give this version of this dark, crazy city where there's a guy running around on rooftops fighting, criminals? And I think, as I was saying before, there's the same thing that should be done with Superman. Where how do I depict the city of the future? That's what Zack Snyder didn't do for Man of Steel. He didn't give us a city of the future. A city I believed is like the metropolis. The city that is, and Nolan does that perfectly in Batman Begins, but forgets about it in the Dark Knight and the Dark Knight Rises, which I thought was unfortunate. I think when you look at Batman Begins, the aesthetic of Gotham was really, really, it became a character in and of itself. And that's what I want them to start doing with the other DC heroes, because that's the mythology. And that's why it's so important to give each of them a city, and to have that city kind of represent the character that they are and the villains that they face. So, I completely agree on Batman Returns.
Focus on Batman, but because it's still Michael Keaton, I'm okay with that. Next up, Wonder Woman. Talk about a classic film. What was great about Wonder Woman, and it was modeled.
This is a bit low, isn't it?
Films like Indiana Jones and stuff like that, and the Richard Donner.
For me, I don't know. I like.
I'm not saying the original Superman, because of course there were versions of Superman before that. But anyway, Wonder Woman felt like an instant classic. It was another great origin story.
Yeah.
Gal Gadot is Wonder Woman. Even Michelle Pfeiffer isn't Catwoman to the degree that Gal Gadot is Wonder Woman.
That's bullshit.
If you
Michelle
told me
Pfeiffer is Catwoman.
Was Wonder Woman, I would believe you. She's like Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones.
No, that's a bad comparison. It's like Hit Girl is Chloe Moretz.
And Wonder Woman, by the way, is a
Catwoman,
very difficult character to play. It has to have the sexiness that you want it to have, but it has to be appealing to women.
There are 4 great performances from women in comic book movies. It's Amanda Waller, Viola Davis, Catwoman as played by Michelle Pfeiffer, obviously. Chloe Moretz, or what, Zoe, the girl who plays Hit Girl in Kick-Ass, and Wonder Woman Gal Gadot. Those are the 4 greatest performances by a female in a comic book movie in terms of wow, like I can't even imagine, and nobody's been able to do Catwoman as much justice. Even in the Dark Knight Rises, where she was really good, it just didn't have half the charm as Michelle Pfeiffer did, and I think that was because honestly, the girl who's a great actress was miscast in the Nolan Dark Knight Rises. And I think Zoe Kravitz as well, unfortunately, she's going to be the worst of all 3 of them. Unless, she's shown the director something that we've never seen of any performance. And I've seen her I even watched that series that she was in recently, which was a really, really good series. About 4 women. I can't remember the name of the show, but you should look it up. Look up Kravitz. It's a TV show. It's got 4 it follows 4 women living in a small town, and they're all mothers in different ways, and they're all having these. I think it's 5 women. And they're all having their own separate issues, and essentially they come together, and or their issues intertwine with each other. But Chloe Kravitz is the weakest in that. Amongst those actresses in that show. So. Yeah, I don't know. Like, to say that Gal Gadot is more. I think the performance-wise, Michelle Pfeiffer's a better performance as Catwoman than Gal Gadot was as Wonder Woman. To be quite honest, even though I love Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, I'd have to watch them side by side, but they're pretty on the ball with it, and I was expecting a lot more. After what I saw, how they evolved the Joker in the Nolan series. So I was expecting a lot more with Catwoman, and I was really... No, I wasn't disappointed in her, but I just thought, Michelle Pfeiffer is still by far the best Catwoman, not even, close.
And Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins pulled it off, and she really is a compassionate warrior goddess. And I've been watching Mrs. America, which is about the feminist movement in the 1970s, and of course, Wonder Woman was on one of the very first covers of Ms. Magazine. And I look at Wonder Woman today and what's being done with Wonder Woman 1984, if we ever get to see that movie. But even what I can see so far, what Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins are doing with this character is, to me, the perfect embodiment of modern feminism. And that's what Wonder Woman
That's
should be.
true.
I love it. But yeah, with all that...
That was what was one of the really good things about the film. And I love the way a bunch of guys now who are like anti-SJW are like jumping on the Wonder Woman bandwagon after seeing Captain Marvel and what that did. Because they were hating on Wonder Woman. Oh, the movie is only so highly rated because it's a woman. And now they're all kind of defending it and saying like how it's so much better than Captain Marvel. Look, Wonder Woman was a fantastic origin movie. I think it's better than every single origin movie in the MCU. I will stand by that. If there's any origin movie that could even possibly challenge it, I mean of a single character, I'm not talking about Guardians of the Galaxy or something like that, but if there's a single character that may be able to challenge it, maybe Iron Man, but no, it was not as good. Iron Man was no way near as good or has that rewatchability factor that Wonder Woman has. I think it's almost close to a classic as you can get. I think the only problem is that some of the writing in it, I feel like could have been a little bit stronger. I think they could have brought out the mythic element of Wonder Woman a little bit more. You know, those great speeches that you have in the Dark Knight. In Batman Begins or Superman 1. You know, they can be a great people, Kal-El. They wish to be. What do you do, Master? Why do we fall, Master? So we can learn to pick ourselves. You know, all of those kind of like great speeches towards Wonder Woman are kind of lacking in that movie, and I wish they have had more of that. Considering, Patty Jenkins said she was inspired by the first Superman, so I thought that kind of mythic element could have been there a little bit more. But apart from that, I even dig the end. I think the sacrifice with Steve Trevor, it was great. It was, and Steve Trevor had some of those speeches that I was talking about, but not quite as neat and tidy. I would have liked one from Hippolyta or one from, Antiope, to Wonder Woman, like just giving her like some kind of thing of how epic she is as a character. But yeah, that's my only real criticism. I thought the sacrifice at the end was really, really strong, and it gets me emotionally every time. I think it's one of the most emotional superhero movies ever made. I don't remember feeling so much emotion in a superhero movie, apart from maybe Kick-Ass was quite emotional at times when Big Daddy died in the movie Kick-Ass, which if you haven't seen, you should definitely watch. It's a really, really good non-DC, non-Marvel superhero movie. But yeah, I think there's very little to complain about, apart from like a little bit of the writing could have been tightened up on the Wonder Woman movie. But the comedy works, it's funny, the relationship between the main characters work. The villains are weak, but at least thematically Ares comes in and he fits in thematically with the whole story. So in that sense, he's less of a villain and more of a theme that she's facing at the end of the movie, which at least is better than the Marvel villains, which thematically are terrible and are just terrible in general. Okay.
Feminism, it has an incredibly strong male character with Chris Pine, Steve Trevor. I love this Wonder Woman. But then Aquaman, I know, over Wonder Woman. But
I know. That is bloody weird.
It is a problem. But Aquaman, I think, has no such problem. It's a fantastic movie throughout. It rises above its casting. James Wan, as I've said many times, knew what to do with Jason Momoa and Amber Heard. He really, I think he's done the most with them that any director has ever done. But don't underestimate the importance of Patrick Wilson to balance them out. He is a fabulous ocean master. Wow, key to the success of that movie. But really, James Wan should be commended. He did just as good a job with the tragic situation of Paul Walker's passing in his Fury of 7 movie as he did with having to deal with obviously not as tragic a situation, but having Amber Heard and Jason Momoa star in your Aquaman.
Alright, let's just talk about Aquaman for a second. This movie is highly overrated. I think a lot of people dislike it, openly dislike it as well, and think it's a mess. There is no doubt that, much like Zack Snyder, if you were to ask me who is a more visionary director, who has a bigger upside, more potential as a director, and I'm not saying this out of like, she's female or anything like that, but especially in the action genre, who's doing more interesting things in the action genre? Patty Jenkins, Zack Snyder, or what's the guy's name? The director of Aquaman. I'll remember his name in a moment. If I don't, I think you guys know who I'm talking about. So the director of Aquaman. It's easy for me. I mean, in terms of the action scenes are better in Aquaman than Wonder Woman. The cinematography is better as well. Visually, it's an incredible movie that possibly should have been Oscar nominated for its visual effects, because its visual effects are extraordinary. I mean, every penny was spent on that movie. I mean, it really went into the movie, and yet it does have a better, if you want to say better villains. They're more developed than Wonder Woman, because that's not really that hard. Certainly, the main characters are nowhere near as interesting to follow. The main band of characters in Wonder Woman, as well as Wonder Woman herself, are just far superior. And I mean, Aquaman is under Man of Steel for me, and I dislike Man of Steel with a passion that you know about. But I'm always going to be objective with these things. And Aquaman is, I mean, the biggest problem is it's a mess. It's a complete mess, and I will talk about it. I don't know why you would spend that much money on a film that's that bad. I just think, and get a director who is so good, and I think does know story, and probably saved a really awful script and made it at least watchable once. But it's overlong. It's I don't know, it's got a lot of fan service, it's very comic accurate, and I think part of the problem with the Aquaman movie, to be quite frank, is Aquaman is not that great a character, and Jason Momoa is nothing like Aquaman, and they're trying to make him badass and cool in this kind of wishy-washy mythology that doesn't really hang together that well. So it's really difficult because there's so much to like about Aquaman. The action scenes are extraordinary. I love the fact that it's so comic accurate, and they put, Black Manta in it. They have Ocean Master, and Ocean Master explaining 7 times why he is Ocean Master, why he's got this ridiculously comic booky name. And I enjoy, the performances by the dad, by the person who plays his mother in the film. Bloody hell, I'm forgetting everyone's names. I love this actress, the Australian actress who plays Aquaman's mother, is very good. I think Mera is very good, although the actress who plays Mera is very good, although I don't think she's going to be around much longer because of her stuff with Johnny Depp. It's just, it doesn't hang together as a movie. So you can say, the third act is better than Wonder Woman, or it's stronger, or the way he defeats the villain, or, it's got a better 3-story arc, and the villain meeting each other, having a head-to-head. and actually talking about why, like having that face to face between the hero and villain. It had a more in depth, more fleshed out villain, but it was still depthless because the writing was so bad. I mean, a lot of it was monologuing and exposit, not exposit, um, just explaining the plot. Basically, the dialogue was all the time explaining the plot as opposed to being natural dialogue. Yeah, I think this movie is highly overrated by some people, and it's a mess. It's a mess. I don't think it's a very watchable movie or rewatchable movie. It made $1 billion. I don't know, like maybe because China, they didn't really understand what anyone was saying, and they were just looking at the visuals. But I wish they could have spent a little bit more money on Shazam. Got the effects better with the monsters in Shazam, because Shazam, I think, suffered because there were so many eyes on this movie, Aquaman, and Shazam, he was coming between Endgame and Infinity War, and it was a far superior movie to Shazam. And again, it's not that the director of Shazam is better than the director of Aquaman. I think quite the opposite. I think in terms of the potential of the director of Aquaman is probably better than most directors in the DCU, better than Patty Jenkins in terms of action movies anyway. But the central issue is that the script should have been touched up a lot more. I just don't know. It seems almost amateur, the script. The script doesn't seem like a script that would go through Hollywood, that would go to something as big as the DCEU, and I think it hurt. Aquaman probably hurt the DCEU as much as Justice League, if not more, because more people went to see Aquaman. They were like, okay, we'll give DC another chance, and then that was it. And then they were like, I don't care what the Rotten Tomatoes say. This isn't an interconnected universe, so I'm just relying on this being a good film. Critics told me that Aquaman was good, and it's actually terrible, so why should I trust what they say about Shazam? And I think that's probably what happened with Shazam making a lot less money. I think they should have switched the positions of Shazam and Aquaman. Had Shazam at Christmas, a nice family Christmas movie, and put Aquaman between Endgame and between Endgame and had it face off against Captain Marvel, because that's a bigger spectacle. Aquaman, like that could have been something, visually at least, that could have matched up to the anticipation of Endgame and Infinity War.
I mean, he stuck the landing like you wouldn't believe. It's very strong world building and has incredible visual effects. It was robbed for a nomination. It should have won. Yeah. And it has so many iconic scenes. The battle alone between Aquaman and Ocean Master in that arena is just incredible. And also when Aquaman realizes his full potential with the trident, it's another great origin story. Fabulous. Then, of course, The Dark Knight changed the superhero genre for everybody. It's serious. I mean, there had been some serious adaptation before, but this was an awards-worthy film. It did win an Oscar for Heath Ledger. It opened the door for who would make and who would star in superhero movies. It has incredible action sequences, incredible dialogue. This is also
I'll talk about this in my own video.
Great,
no argument here.
Moments like Joker. I mean, he has the pencil trick, the opening bank heist when he comes out of the hospital. But even the stuff with Bruce Wayne is good. How about the Hong Kong sequence? That's amazing. You have a great Batman, a great Joker, a great Gordon, and a great Dent. Although Nolan still can't do female characters. He's never been able to do
Dent. Dent was not that good.
I wonder if one day he'll be able to overcome that. I'm thinking no, because it's pretty far into his career. And we all felt that The Dark Knight could never be topped. Until, of course, Joker came along, and that has replaced officially Dark Knight in my top 3 movies.
I must remember to say this. Dent was not that good in the movie. He was all right, but the Two-Face character could have been a lot better in The Dark Knight. But that's pretty much my only complaint. And I thought the third act was a bit hokey with the two boats. I guess he wanted to fight over the soul of so it was like kind of interesting, rather than having an action scene, to have something where it was a little bit more philosophical, the final battle between Joker and Batman. But I thought it just could have been done in a different way, or the dialogue could have been different with the two boats or something. But that didn't work for me, and the fact Batman blames himself didn't work for me. And it especially didn't work for me that Batman blames himself at the end of the movie, and then that doesn't even play into The Dark Knight Rises. Like, it should have been the cops after Batman in The Dark Knight Rises, while he has to face off against one of his iconic villains. And I still say that, even though I found a new appreciation for The Dark Knight Rises. But the whole ending is hokey. Oh, Batman is going to blame himself. Why? Just to make it dark and gritty or something, when he could have blamed the murder of, sorry, spoilers, he could have blamed the murder of Harvey Dent's death could have been blamed on the Joker. It's that simple. And then the Joker, I think I agree with her on this one, so I'll just listen to it. It's
even more serious, and Marvel has very successfully mixed superhero films with other genres. But Joker mixes the superhero genre with an awards film, and that's so cool to see. I mean, The Dark Knight is a superhero film meets Heat, and that's cool, Michael Mann's Heat. That's very cool, but it's still like a caper kind of movie. Joker is the kind of film that is like, you just jaw dropped watching it. It's that well constructed. And I think it's on the level of Black Panther, and speaking to the people who are watching it, reflecting on what's happening in society, real society, at the moment. But whereas Black Panther is uplifting, Joker shines a light, just like the character does in the movie, into what's wrong with society. That's really impressive that the movie is able to do that. And the talk show scene, that is like, not only straight out of the comics, an homage to the comics of Frank Miller, but Joker seemed not just real, but terrifying. Like, I think in other instances, like The Dark Knight, you were like, oh yeah, this is such a realistic approach to the Joker. But with what Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix did, you felt that the Joker could walk off the screen, but it wasn't exciting, it was terrifying. And yeah, it is a disturbing film, because the Joker is a disturbing character. That's the whole damn point. That's why Bruce Wayne puts on a Batman suit and goes and does what he does, because he's dealing with a level of criminal and threat that we've never seen in real life. It's amazing. It's really amazing. It elevates the whole genre of comic book storytelling. I love that movie. It's incredible.
Yeah, I agree with her. I mean, I'm not sure which one I have at number one, so we'll have to come back and see how I actually rank the DC movies myself. I'm going to do a ranking of the DCAU as well, and the DC movies tomorrow. So all of the movies ranked. She also forgot V for Vendetta, I noticed, which I won't tell you where I rank that. I'll go through all of them. I thought her list was interesting. I thought she left some at the back of the list that should have been way up there. And you'll see that from my list. But I must agree with her top two. Oh, sorry, not her top two. I kind of agree that her top two are like in relatively good positioning, but how Aquaman has got so high is beyond me. So that's my response to Grace Randolph's DC movies ranked. Hope you enjoyed, and see you tomorrow. Please like, subscribe, and maybe comment and list your rankings of the DC movies. Thanks so much. Bye bye.